Precious, let's start with you and your journey. African Fashion International celebrating 10 years this year.
Bronwyn, it's amazing. I never thought we would be this far when we started. We actually bought an events company back in 2006, 2005, 2006, and we changed it, restructured completely. I decided it was going to be a platform that we could use to promote African designers, Pan-African designers. So we renamed it in 2007 African Fashion International. And the goal was then to invite designers from South Africa and from other areas, countries on the continent, to showcase to a global platform.
What was your vision? What did you want to achieve?
Well, people always ask me, how did you change from being a doctor to being this? It's a relevant question, but I think having noticed the vast talents and skills that we have in this country, and in my training as a doctor and my practice as a doctor, I've always been very, very passionate about helping others, and I've gone into fashion to do the same thing. How do we begin to grow this industry? How do we begin to get the local designers to be known locally first and become global, brands, and to become commercially viable? So my vision, my wish for the company from the beginning was for it to become the best fashion marketing and retailing platform from Africa.
So Selvin, let's bring you into the conversation. You've been a part of the African Fashion International story for the last 6 years. And I'm going to ask you the same thing. Where did it begin?
Yeah, it's really great that it coincides as well with my appointment as a marketing director of Mercedes-Benz. So 6 years with Dr. Precious has been an incredible journey. 7 years ago, Mercedes-Benz globally took a decision to become involved in fashion across many platforms. We started sponsoring international fashion weeks such as Milan, Paris, etc. And the natural progression was to do the same in South Africa. It was about opening up the brand, a very conservative brand at the time, to a new, trendy, influential market. We came to a realization, took us a while, that everybody wants to be in a trendy, stylish car, and these cars need to be driven also by influencers in the trendy set. So it was a perfect match for us, and in finding AFI, it was also a perfect partnership. As you know, Mercedes-Benz is about the best or nothing, and so is AFI.
Talking about long-term partnerships, I think there are many people watching this show thinking, how on earth do I create that kind of long-term sustainability with a sponsor like Mercedes-Benz? What would you say is the secret to that success?
I think it's like any relationship. It's work in progress. It's understanding each other, understanding what your partner's wishes and objectives are, and to see how that fits in with where you're going. Fortunately, we are so meshed, as Selvin has already said. The two companies have an appreciation for creativity, design, products that are finished by human hands. And appealing to consumers that appreciates beautiful things that are finished by human hands. But I think that a very important ingredient also is communication. We always, I drop Selvin a call. This is what we're doing. What do you think? This is where we're going to have Fashion Week this year. Tell him about the venue, tell his team about the venue. Whenever we have campaigns, we also communicate, this is what we're thinking of doing. What does your team think? At the moment we're looking at a very exciting campaign. The team calls it Road to Runway campaign. And we have to make sure that you're always aligned in terms of your values and your objectives as partners. I think that makes for a winning recipe.
And Selvin, what about introducing new platforms into the partnership? So we know the marketing space is exploding from a digital avenue perspective. Do you brainstorm different platforms together and decide that this is a fluid relationship and let's investigate this avenue this time around?
Absolutely. Ideation is all about the experience and the journey. Like Dr. Precious said, a sponsorship for Mercedes-Benz is much like a marriage. It's all about compromise as well to a large extent, but it's about having a common vision and common goal. We don't believe in short-term partnerships. All of our partnerships, we become fully immersed in it. And we are very specific. Even as a brand, we've only got 4 pillars as partnership, and fashion is the most important one. We have motorsport, we have golf, and we have design. So within that fashion platform, we make sure that we leverage this platform in every possible way. We've been involved from the beginning also in the fast-track programs and look at development of fashion. We've got a good relationship with fashion producers, with actually the designers themselves. So we've become part of this industry as well.
Isn't that fantastic to hear from a sponsor that they have 4 pillars? Fashion is the most important of those pillars. But let's talk about the business side of this industry, which is glamorous, which is exciting. Is it tough to create a business in the fashion industry?
It is tough. I think anywhere in the world to have a sustainable fashion business. We promote designers on our marketing platform to an audience of customers, potential customers for them, to media, as well as to the fashion crowns. It's a marketing platform, but it's got to go beyond that. They have to now sustainably sell the products to their consumers. So, if one looks at the fashion industry across the continent, it's very fragmented. Challenges such as not being able to sell very easily across countries.
Access to markets is a key challenge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just the trade barriers, it's easier probably to sell on the internet anywhere in the world than it is to sell somebody who lives in Nigeria or in Swaziland because of infrastructural problems. Manufacturing is still a problem, I believe. We do have pockets of excellence, but there is still a challenge in terms of manufacturing. Textiles, designers battle with having to import their textiles because our textile industry has been severely damaged. And
of course volatility when it comes to currencies, emerging
absolutely.
markets,
yes.
and
that impacts
import.
It definitely does, yeah.
So is there a roadmap to overcoming these challenges as a young African designer wanting to break into the global stage? Or onto the global stage, rather?
I think so. If I can say, one of the things, looking back 10 years on AFI's journey, one of the things I'm most proud of is to see how local designers have become part of the lexicon of the dialogue amongst consumers. Everybody knows David Tlale, they know Marian Fazler, they know Tula Sinda. So we've got these designers, local designers, that have become known local brands, and that is important. But beyond that, where we're talking about them having access to markets, exporting their goods, we still have a challenge. What I think AFI will be able to do in the next 10 years is to aggregate the fragmented industry in terms of aligning the supply chain, making it easier for designers to have a manufacturing base, and most importantly, on the retail side. So what we see ourselves as in the next 10 years is that company on the continent that is able to really take African fashion and the fashion industry to another level where we can compete globally successfully.
Let's talk about the role of Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week within this broader vision now, and in terms of giving visibility to those designers and overcoming a lot of the challenges that Precious has highlighted.
Absolutely, and I think maybe firstly for me to state that our entry to the fashion world was not just about what we could get out of fashion, but it's also about what we can give to fashion. So part of what Mercedes-Benz brings to the party is that we have a huge base of customers, but also in terms of social media. For instance, we have 1 million followers on Facebook, and we can use those platforms to give really exposure to
and you
to
do
fashion.
leverage those
Of course, yes. Also, our customer base. We have the top-end customers in the country driving our products. We have a CRM base of all of the information. We create opportunities through Fashion Week to even get these customers that are not generally into fashion to start attending fashion, understand the business of fashion as well. And throughout all of this, we've also been able to really create exposure for some of the designers internationally through our other Fashion Week platforms. And through Dr. Precious and her team, we've created opportunities for international designers to come to South Africa as well and show off their wares.
International designers coming to South Africa, is there skills transfer that takes place in that process? Tell me a little bit more about that project.
So this is a project whereby we chose the best designer from South Africa to participate at a fashion week on an international scale, and doing the same at sort of an exchange. Skills transfer, yes, it's happening. It may be small, but this is an area that we think as AFI we will be able to expand on. For example, we've just taken Eleni Lobro, who was one of our fast-track designers. I think she was a 2013 fast-track designer of the year. And we took her to London. She participated in the International Fashion Show. She will be able to learn from the other designers. She will be able to network in the industry and gain important knowledge on how you move from the ramp into engaging with buyers in the industry. And we also have as our head of design who's coming in from the UK to help train our local designers who will be working with our AFI Privé platform, which is our retail division.
I'm going to latch on to a term that you use there, and that is that she's one of your fast-track designers. Tell me what it is to be a fast-track designer within the African Fashion International fold.
This is a very exciting program, which Selvin has said we've worked on previously together. So we take young designers from college and we put them through a training program with established designers and as well as other business people who expose them to the business side of fashion. After the program, they graduate and they become the next generation of designers. In the past 6 years, we've trained and have about 75 young designers who have gone on to establish brands, to work in the retail sector. We've got Rich Mnisi, who's become a household brand also. He's just gone on to develop an amazing fashion-forward brand, Rich Mnisi.
So tell me, how do you identify the talent at the college level? Do you go scouting for the talent?
We have people within AFI who focus on fast track specifically. So they go and throughout South Africa, and we've even started engaging with some of the schools on the continent, and they identify together with the lecturers the best students at these colleges. They get brought to AFI. They get to do a collection of 4 outfits that our panel will then look at. And our panel consists of people like retailers, fashion journalists, and just the public. So they get feedback from all sides, and then we put them through our incubation program, Fast Track.
Talking about Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week, Johannesburg, Cape Town. Now I'm going to throw in a spanner into the works. Lagos, Kigali, Nairobi, on the cards?
Yes, I mean, and that's a slightly difficult one for Mercedes-Benz South Africa because our territory extends as far as Botswana and Namibia. Outside
so
of
in the SADC region?
In the SADC region, unfortunately. So the marketing for the rest of the continent is driven out of Germany. So we've introduced the team to our German colleagues, and hopefully those discussions can proceed. But there's a lot of interest. I know that for a fact that Nigeria was very interested in starting their fashion weeks, but it comes with its own challenges as well. I think for us, the focus is definitely South Africa. And maybe for me, just to add, we spoke about the exchange, etc. We've got an award-winning plant here in South Africa, and that's what separates us from the rest of the world. It's in East London, and we have a manufacturing line that's rated among the best in the world. And one of the things that we're exploring is how do we use that best practice in manufacturing and automotive to transfer skills also to manufacturing within the fashion industry, just in time, just in sequence manufacturing, etc.
So Selvin, I will tell you that when we are on the global stage, specifically at the World Economic Forum in Davos, the Minister of Trade and Industry does laud that manufacturing plant of Mercedes-Benz specifically. So absolutely, if there can be transfer of that manufacturing entity into the clothing and the fashion environment, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
Your aspirations as African Fashion International, we've touched on the challenges for Mercedes-Benz South Africa to expand, although you are talking to Germany, who would obviously pull the trigger in a positive way, so to speak, on some project like that.
Yes, yes.
Talk to me about, I mean, Lagos and Nigeria is such a big fashion industry. Everybody is talking about it. Where does that fall into the fold for you?
You see, with the reason we called ourselves African Fashion International is because we don't see ourselves as South African only. So our platform hosts designers from all over the continent. We've got quite a few well-known Nigerian designers who will be participating at Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week Cape Town, as well as Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week Joburg. This is something that we've been doing
for many years.
For many years, yes. We have consolidated. If you remember, we used to have Africa Fashion Week, and we decided to consolidate and only have 2 fashion weeks. But these are also pan-African, so we invite designers, the best designers from the continent, showcase at our platforms.
But in the future, let's say the next 10-year strategy, it may be feasible to take this huge showcase to the continent, or is it not necessary? Look,
fashion weeks are changing quite a bit with the introduction of technology. If you look at London Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week, a lot of designers do not show on the actual platform and prefer maybe to showcase offsite, or even prefer to do just a live streaming of the shows. But AFI's intention from the beginning was to travel the continent. But like I said, infrastructure problems have sort of slowed us down on that. But who knows, we will one day.
Of course, and once the infrastructure is established, it's a challenge that we all have, specifically as a channel operating across the African continent as well. Now, you sit there as the success story, Dr. Precious Moloi Motsepe. And I think a lot of our viewers will say, have you ever had a bad day? Has there ever been a point where you've thought, the effort that I'm putting into this business, is it worth it? Have there been stories of failure in the African Fashion International brand, or is it just a bed of roses?
Oh, definitely never. Anything that is really worth pursuing in earnest is full of challenges, and one has to be ready to take on those challenges. So, I mean, I can mention just 2 of these where when we started with Fashion Week, we took 4 young designers and took on Paris Fashion Week, and we didn't know better at that time. Fortunately, these have become successful designers in their own right, but the challenges of actually going into a global fashion space as an unknown entity, it was quite challenging. I didn't expect that. But the positive is that these designers have become very successful brands. The second one, I think, is when we ventured into the retail space. We have learned so many lessons since then. Very importantly is that we need to carefully curate collections for designers, for the public to consume. So our pre-vey in the beginning was not so successful, particularly when it comes to the e-commerce platform. We're coming back at Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week Cape Town, and I think we've learned our lessons, and we're going to do it better.
So taking into account those lessons.
Absolutely.
And refining the model.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what people really want to know, is that everybody has challenges and that you've got to go back, rework a strategy, and then try again or attempt again. Do African designers belong on the global stage, Selvin?
Without a doubt. I mean, we have been completely blown away by the designers in this country, and we would love to be able to create even further opportunities in the international platforms that we have. Like I said, for us as Mercedes-Benz, we don't accept the status quo. It's always about pushing the boundaries, always about exploring new opportunities and delivering the best or nothing, not only to our customers, but to the country as a whole. And in that regard, really, we have the best in this country. We've leveraged it with our customers, with our dealers. We've leveraged it with the aspirational fans of the brand, but there's just so much more scope for us.
Which territories on the international front do you see the most traction for African designers that you've been working with? Is it easy to quantify?
It is. If you look at places like New York, where there is a diaspora, there's a lot of Africans who want to see great things coming from the continent. So New York is fantastic for us. Even Paris is really, because people appreciate different design, something authentic, something that has history and heritage that comes from the continent. It's unexpected and it's different from anything else that you see there. So I think markets in the diaspora are very, very welcoming for African brands.
We've spoken a little about the history, the 10-year journey, the opportunities, the challenges. Now I want to look to the future and what your vision is for the next 5 to 10-year period. And obviously, I'm assuming, Selvin, that this partnership is going to go from strength to strength. So I'd like you to also contribute to the vision and where you see African fashion growing, and particularly African fashion international. Precious.
Well, I think for us, the next 5 to 10 years will be building on what we have. Fashion weeks will remain a very important part of what we do, because this is where we engage with consumers. The designers get to engage with their customers. We have sponsors who are part of what we're doing at Fashion Week. So that will always be a very integral part of African Fashion International.
As the perfect showcase vehicle.
Absolutely, absolutely, the best. I think from where we are looking now to infuse the business side of fashion to our designers and for ourselves. There has to be sustainable businesses, profitable businesses, and I think that's where AFI is really focusing its eyes at.
And of course, global competition feeds into whether African designers will be sustainable in the design space and in the manufacturing space that you alluded to earlier, with obviously the Mercedes-Benz manufacturing plant in East London.
Absolutely. You know, like I said, we are completely invested in fashion, not just in South Africa, but globally. We've got an entire infrastructure set up, even in the UK, supporting all the different markets. So the marketing collateral for fashion is essentially created and curated and distributed to many markets. So we don't have to work as hard to create our own material. We leverage what's there internationally. So for us, it's without preempting any contract negotiations. For us,
you see, I brought you around. This is actually the boardroom table. I mean, could you ask for anything more perfect and synergistic? Should I bring out the contract now?
I thought you were going to, actually, but we are in the space right now where we have, part of our involvement in fashion, like I said, was to make the brand younger and trendier. If we look back 10 years, the average Mercedes-Benz customer, and I'll say this quietly, was starting with a 6.
So it's very quietly.
The average age was starting with a 6. So now we've brought that down to below a 5, below 50. And but always it's about getting newer customers into the brand, making it very sustainable. If you want to be the #1 brand in the world in the premium segment, which we achieved last year, by the way, for the first time.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. But it's about extending your customer base. And we do this through new products, and we've introduced a whole range of new cars to attract these customers. But it's also about finding the right partnerships and platforms to create awareness among the audience. And when we look at fashion, it's still very relevant for us. So our vision does include it. And so that's where we're going at the moment.
And just a final word, I think, to those aspiring designers who are glued to the screen right now and thinking, I want to be part of Dr. Precious Moloi Motsepe's story and the story of African Fashion International. Just a word to those aspiring designers.
I think they must do what they love. They must have a passion for their work as designers, but they must always remember that this is a business that is difficult, and at the end of the day, you've got to make it commercially viable for yourself.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Precious Moloi Motsepe, Selvin, Govender, Mercedes-Benz. Thank you very much for joining us.